Hello, my name is Helen Campbell, formerly of DG Skik, and now retired. And my subject is now understanding your subject. I'm going to give you a few examples from my own life, and then just talk a little bit about the nature of that subject, and I will start now. Now, I've just had a new bathroom installed in my flat, and also a new loo or lavatory. All of this cost me a great deal of money and time, and I certainly will spare you such boring details. But having this done has led me to ask a few questions. Whilst the work was being done, I did begin to want to know how these things functioned. And perhaps the mechanisms were not as simple as I thought. I was choosing all sorts of fixtures, taps and pieces of furniture and shower fitments and all sorts. But it did then occur to me I had no idea how these things actually worked. Do we care how they work, by the way? Well, perhaps we should care a little bit more. For example, just how does a lavatory work? You might say to yourself, well, that's pretty easy. We use these things all the time. But just try and explain it to someone. This is interesting because this is the actual question that was asked by two psychologists from Yale University. Quite a long time ago, too, around 2 decades ago. This is what they did. They said, you should try to explain to someone how your lavatory worked, and then, as well as that, do a diagram of how it works to explain it to a friend. Now, apparently most people are absolutely incapable of doing this and are surprised at how little they know. There were other subjects, too, where people felt, first of all, well, of course I know how that works. And then it turned out, when asked to explain or describe or to do a diagram, they were quite unable. For example, quartz watches, zips, how do they work? Locks, piano keys, sewing machines. Those are just some of the items listed where users felt that they were sure they knew how these mechanisms worked and then couldn't explain. The main thing is to say to someone who feels they do know how, for example, a helicopter works, please explain to me in simple terms how that helicopter works, and then do me a drawing and show me how it works. It will turn out that it's not as easy as it looks. And the same thing, oddly enough, applies to politics. People think they understand issues, and when asked to explain or describe, they fail. Here, more recently, 2 authors, again in the United States, carried out some work with a research team. They invited people, in this case residents of the United States, to rate their understanding of American politics or political proposals. For example, sanctions on Iran, cap and trade systems for carbon emissions. People, most of the time, responded by saying they perfectly understood what these issues meant, what these policies involved. Trying to explain them was another matter. They were also asked to rate their approval and understanding of different phenomena. People tended, again, to overrate their knowledge at first, and then feel a little bit humble when asked to be more specific. It occurs to me that this sort of test might have been useful for the British voters when they were called upon to vote yes or no for Brexit in the referendum in 2016. Could many of these people, these voters know, for example, what was the difference between the single market and the customs union? How many politicians actually know what the difference is as well? I've watched several political debates with party leaders on television, and there is never any answer to any specific, detailed question. People simply do not know. One wonders whether perhaps this test should have been carried out before, and in my opinion, certainly on British politicians and voters. But unfortunately, as we all know, it is too late for that. The moral of the story is, just try to know your subject. Thank you.